Hey there, what's on your mind? We've just gotten through another Friday the 13th. Was that on your mind? Saturday, there was Valentine's Day. Did you have love on your mind? And today, here we are. Oh, that's right. We're approaching the Lunar New Year. So there are all kinds of festivals and celebrations going on as well. What's on your mind? Well, I certainly hope that on your mind today, right now, is Stress Talk Live, because we're going to get into our subject in just one moment. So it just occurred to me that you may not have heard my opening. You may not have heard my opening, but that's okay because we're going to be talking about three hidden ways your coworkers are triggering your stress. I was saying earlier, in the event that it was not picked up by my microphone, I was talking about the fact that we just had a Friday the 13th, and I was wondering if people were still thinking about that, talking about that, dealing with that. Did you have any like spooky stuff happen on Friday the 13th? I also talked about how yesterday was Valentine's Day. Did Was love on your mind yesterday? Is it still on your mind? It could be. And then today, we've been talking about, and all weekend actually, there's been talk about the Lunar New Year. And there are all kinds of celebrations and festivals that are connected to the Lunar New Year as well. So I was just wondering what's on your mind. And I was hoping, and I am still hoping, that what is on your mind today is our topic. Three hidden ways your coworkers are triggering your stress. We've been talking about the environment, all of the factors that affect our stress levels. And we've talked about the environment. We're talking about the environment, right? We're talking about the physical space that we are in, whether it is our workspace, our home space, indoors, outdoors, the physical space and what it's like and how that affects our stress levels. Today, I wanted to talk about, start a conversation about people, because people are part of that environment, right? People can increase our stress, or they can help to calm us and give us peace and calm. So I wanted to talk about our coworkers. We spend an enormous amount of time at work. Boy, do we. It makes up so much of our waking hours, at least 8 hours. Many of us work 10 hours a day, maybe 12 hours a day. And it is natural that we are affected not only by the physical space that we're in, but also by the people who also are in that physical space. And so I wanted to share with you today how ways that your coworkers are triggering your stress. What is actually happening when your coworkers are interacting with you, when they're in the space that you're in, and how that affects you. But also, as I was looking at this information and just thinking about it, I was also thinking that we may be the ones who are triggering stress for our coworkers just by virtue of um, how we are in the space. So it's just food for thought. Just food for thought. All right, let's get started. Oh, yes, this is Stress Talk Live, and this is the place where we help women over 40 to live healthier lives through strategic stress management and solution focused self care. So, what exactly does that mean? Strategic stress management and solution focused self care. Well, what it means is that we offer research informed conversations, and that's insightful and specifically for women over 40. And many of the women that watch Stress Talk are very serious. They're very serious about how they manage stress, their need to manage stress, but they also want to be able to manage stress in a way that they can feel successful. Sometimes we use generic stress relief, and that stress comes back and it's even more impactful. And so, what we try to offer foundational information and ways that you can incorporate stress management into your life and lifestyle so that it is not just something that you do when you think about it or something that you start doing when you need it, but it is something that is part of your everyday routine. That's what we mean by strategic stress management and solution focused self care. So let's get to our topic for today. We're talking about three hidden ways your coworkers are triggering your stress. One of the first things that I want to share with you is the coworker who is the micromanager. And I'm not talking about um, your supervisor or or someone in administration. I'm actually talking about coworkers. And I'm going to describe this coworker to you, okay? Because I think it's we have them. And again, we might be that coworker. We might be the person who um, micromanages other people. So this coworker is the person who checks on you. They're the person who is constantly checking your progress, constantly checking on what you're doing, constantly checking how far you've gone in your day on the things that you're working on. They're also the person who questions everything you're doing, right? They're the person who you could say looks over your shoulders. They're that person who, like, when you're doing something and you look up and they're right there checking on you, checking on what you're doing, that's who I'm talking about. Not only that, if you're working on a project with them, they're probably the person who redoes everything. They redo the work as if you've not been involved at all. That can be very, very stressful. Not only can it be stressful, it is aggravating, right? It's aggravating, and it's like, wait, they are not the supervisor. They're not the person who signs the paycheck. What gives them the right to check up on me, as an example, when that's not their role? Well, when we have a micromanager coworker, and again, I'm not talking about supervisors or administration, when we have a coworker who is a micromanager, it makes us feel as if we are not competent, right? It makes us feel drained, and it also causes resentment, and it makes it difficult to work with that person within the workspace. And remember, people are part of the environment, and interactions can cause increased stress. As humans, we actually need to have autonomy. That's really a core need, a basic need that we have. And when a person is a micromanager, especially when it's not their job, even if they're a supervisor, but I'm not talking about supervisors. If a person is a micromanager, that really is a reflection of their insecurity. A reflection of their fear of failure when they cannot allow others to do what they need to do and what they know to do. So what should you do if you encounter a coworker who is a micromanager? One of the things that could be helpful is using the technique that I've shared before, and it's called box breathing. In box breathing, you actually breathe in for 4, you hold it for 4, you exhale for 4, you don't breathe for 4. Okay, so it's breathing in for a count of 4, holding that breath for a count of 4, exhaling on a count of 4, and then finally not breathing in on a count of 4. That is box breathing. Now, what's really interesting about box breathing is that it's also called combat tactical breathing. And it is actually what US Navy SEALs use. So come on. If it's good enough for the United States Navy SEALs, and we know what kind of, well, we may not know exactly, but we do have an idea of the types of situations that Navy SEALs encounter. But if it's good enough for them, it can do wonders for us because we are not encountering the types of situations that they encounter, right? Albeit the situations we encounter are stressful. Box breathing can help us to manage our fear and also help us to reduce our anxiety. Not only that, it sharpens our focus. Remember, one of the things that I've also shared with you is that when we are in that stress response mode, we can't think and it's hard for us to process information. And what we want to do is get into that relaxation response so that we can be sharper. Box breathing helps us to do that. So we can manage a micromanaging coworker by managing ourselves. First, we can use box breathing, which is also combat tactical breathing and something that our US Navy SEALs use. We can also take a break, take a micro break, step away from your desk for 10, 15 minutes. Allow yourself to detach emotionally and reset. That's very, very important. Sometimes we do just have to walk away because when we have a micromanaging coworker, it can aggravate the stew out of us, right? Another thing that we can do, and this is a long term solution, we can just set boundaries. And I've talked about boundaries a couple of months ago and the importance of boundaries. I described the different types of boundaries that we can use, but we can set boundaries. We have to stick to them. Boundaries will allow us to reclaim our space, and it will also, if we set boundaries in a certain way, it can allow us to suggest clear delineation or division of tasks. And that should help to manage that micromanager. So, one of the hidden ways that our coworkers trigger our stress is by micromanaging. Another way that a coworker can trigger our stress is if we work with someone who is a gossiper and a politician. Now, some of us work in places where the they're like little cities, little cities in themselves. And these little cities are ripe for, um, how can I put it, gossip. They are ripe for gossip. We want to be very, very aware of how gossip can impact and influence the workplace. So, when we are working with a coworker who is a gossiper as well as a politician, they know how to use information, they know how to weaponize their contacts and their connections. It creates an atmosphere of distrust, doesn't it? And it also causes us to be a little paranoid about our situation, where we are, who we work with. Also, it causes us to feel isolated because we might start second guessing our relationships, our work relationships. Additionally, if we are excluded and the subject of gossip, isn't that horrible? It is. It's kind of like being in middle school. To be honest, in a workplace with grown-ups, being in a situation that's so similar to middle school is really, it's unfortunate. But there are workplaces like that. And some of you work in those workplaces, and some of you are the subject of the gossip, and some of you are excluded. So, how can you do this? How can you manage this? One of the things that I would suggest is managing it by using your mindfulness. Use the grounding technique that I've shared with you before. It's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. With this grounding technique, it helps you to get out of that loop, that anxiety loop, that anxious loop, and it allows you to come back to the present moment. When we are in the present moment, we are rarely experiencing depression because we're not living in the past, we're not replaying things, and we're not anxious because we're not wondering what if. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is a mindfulness technique that you can use to bring yourself, to ground yourself. How does it work? You find 5 things that you can see. I can see my lamp. I can see my window. I can see the blinds on my window. I can see my computer screen. Just name 5 things. You'd also name 4 things that you can physically feel. So that could be like you can physically feel your bottom on the chair. You can physically feel the cloth of your sleeve on your arm. Naming 4 things that you can physically feel. Then you name 3 things that you hear. I can hear the sound of traffic. I can hear my husband sneezing. I can hear our dog barking. Then you name 2 things that you can smell. And then 1 thing that you can taste. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5 things you see, 4 things you feel, physically feel, 3 things, you hear, 2 things you smell, and then 1 thing you can taste. This brings you out of that anxiety loop and brings you back into the present. Another thing that you can do is write. Excuse me. I'm always suggesting writing as a way, and that can be another mindfulness activity, a way to clear your mind. You can actually write down the patterns of gossip that you notice. That way you have the information, but you don't have to get stuck in the emotion of it, because gossipers and gossiping can hurt. Excuse me, I need to get a drink of water. Gossiping and gossipers can hurt and can be hurtful. So you can get information without getting stuck in the emotion that you're feeling. A long-term solution to working with gossipers and politicians, you can try these two. One is confrontation, but empathic confrontation, where it is not confrontation that is that causes that's contentious. Okay, that's a better word. That's contentious. But you're able to say, hey, I just want to clarify expectations and make sure we're on the same page about this project or about this. Confrontation. So it's not confrontational, but it is confronting the situation, right? The other thing is trying to build strong, positive alliances. People who are gossipers, people who are politicians, again, they are very similar to micromanagers in that they feel insecure, that they feel fear, that they feel that they have to control situations and the environment in order to feel safe. So, as a long term solution, trying to build collaboration that's inclusive, but also building trust among the gossiper and the politician while establishing boundaries. Okay. What about the coworker who is competitive and a one-upper? They're the ones who take your idea and take it as a jumping off point, and they're the ones who try to make it better. They have a better idea. Remember that old phrase that Ford used to use? Ford has a better idea. I think it was Ford. But they take your idea and they make it better, or try to make it seem as if they've improved upon it. These are your competitive coworkers. They also, in addition to taking your idea, they also will take credit for your work, for the information that you've shared, for the information, the knowledge that you have. They will take credit for that. How do they do that? They'll either express it as if it's your own, or they'll take what you've told them and they will share it so that it appears as if they're the ones who have that information, who got that information, who know the information. The other thing is they will downplay your accomplishments, your knowledge, your experience. They'll downplay that. They're the competitive ones. Working with someone who is highly competitive in a work situation is very unmotivating. It is. It's just unmotivating. It's very difficult to work with someone like that, because when your contributions are minimized, or your knowledge or your experience is minimized, you don't want to share what you know, which really hurts collaboration, and it really hurts the workplace. It really hurts growth. So it's very important for us to manage it. And again, we can't manage other people. We can only manage ourselves. That's the only thing that we can do. Hello, Hidden Human TV. I am talking about ways in which our coworkers trigger our stress, cause us to be stressed, because our coworkers are part of the environment. And this episode is part of a series that I'm doing about how the environment affects our stress levels. So that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm teaching today. I'm glad you joined me for a few minutes. Good to have you. So when we are So, thank you. So, when we are talking about managing the competitive coworker, appreciate you. When we're talking about managing the competitive coworker, we want to manage ourselves and our response. One of the ways that we can do that is by practicing deep breathing. And this is another breath technique that I've shared with you in the past. You inhale slowly, you hold it for a count of 3, and then you exhale slowly. The longer your exhale, the better, because exhales are what trigger the what? The relaxation response. So you want to try deep breathing. You also change the task. If you have a competitive coworker who's jumped in there and they want to fix what you're doing, go to something small that you don't really have to think about and just change the task. That will switch that emotional loop that you're in, because you're thinking, I can't stand this. This person's getting on my nerves, it's aggravating me. And you're feeling emotions about that. You want to break that emotional loop. And you can do that by switching the task that you're working on. The other thing is, remind yourself of who you are. Now, I'm a big proponent of that. Remind yourself of who you are. Remind yourself of the wins that you've had. Remind yourself of the successes that you've had. Remind yourself of all the positive things that people at work have said about you. Remind yourself of how you have fixed things. Remind yourself of how you are successful, how you are competent, how you are loyal, all of those good things that you bring to the table in your workplace. Remind yourself of those things, because when you remind yourself of those positive things about you, you're going to feel better about yourself, and you're going to take your attention away from your competitive coworker and place it back where it belongs, on you. The other thing, long term, let's talk about long term solutions. And yes, I'm coming to the end because I'm almost at my time. Long term solutions. You want to, when your coworker decides to jump in on your ideas, jump in to improve them, respond to that coworker with inclusive language. Yeah, this is great. Thank you for that, for the teamwork. Okay. Also, detach emotionally. You don't have to be connected emotionally. Be objective in how you're viewing situations. Be objective in how you are interacting with your coworker. Take the emotion out of it. Also, if it is that stressful for you, foster your skills and your ability outside of work. Allow yourself to grow by using what you know outside of work. Build your self esteem outside of work, because your work is not you, it's what you do. So, I have just talked about 3 hidden ways your coworkers are triggering your stress. I've talked about some of the psychology behind why your coworkers do what they do. And again, that could be you, just keeping that in mind. Also, I've specifically spoke about the coworker who's the micromanager, the coworker who's the gossiper slash politician, as well as the competitive one upper. I hope this has been helpful for you. I hope you are enjoying Stress Talk Live with Marcyline. I certainly enjoy being with you on Sunday evenings. In the meantime, I hope you enjoyed your Friday the 13th, your Valentine's Day, and now your Lunar New Year. And that's all for now. Hope to see you next time. Take good care.